This is our visit to Tonto National Monument in Arizona. Tonto National Monument is somewhat in the middle of nowhere. Woody here is pointing out the location. It's about 110 miles from Phoenix, not a straight line to there. If you're coming from the east, it's only about 31 miles from Globe, Arizona. We were on our way from Globe, Arizona to Montezuma's castle when we saw this sign on the highway. Tonto National Monument was not on our radar, but seeing this sign, we actually passed it, went a little ways down the road, and turned around and came back to one of the most wonderful experiences in our visit in Arizona. This is the National Monument map of the area. You see the visitor center down at the lower center, and up to the middle of the map there you see the lower cliff dwelling. This is the one that we had the opportunity to visit. We did not go up to the upper cliff dwelling, which would have to be for another time, but may be as wonderful as the lower cliff dwelling. Here we are looking up at the lower cliff dwelling. Between where we're standing and the cliff dwelling, there are several switchbacks on the path with wonderful views ahead of us. Here we're looking down at the valley from the hiking path up to the lower cliff dwelling. I placed a red line there across the highway that is running along there where we discovered the driveway to this monument. Although the ancient people could survive on wild plants, they thrived by farming crops such as cotton, amaranth, corn, beans, and squash that were introduced into the Southwest from Mexico hundreds of years ago. Corn, beans, and squash became their primary source of food. Cotton provided material to weave, and amaranth was used as a dye for cloth. Both provided a food source during droughts. This photo was taken from the hiking path looking back down at the visitor center. And going off over to the right, you can see some of the pathway as it goes through switchbacks coming up the hillside. I think the hike up to the cliff dwelling was an elevation gain of about 350 feet. And here and there were some nice benches that I took advantage of, and always a beautiful view behind looking at the valley, and up ahead always seeing the cliff dwelling yet ahead. Getting closer, you can see the pathway running through about the lower 1/3 of this photo, always looking ahead at what we're going to see at this cliff dwelling. Here we've reached the destination. It must have been a wonderful place for these people to live. And the next few slides will be some of the room areas and the beautiful view. And as we learned at another site, going up was optional, but going down was mandatory. On the right is Angeline Mitchell Brown, a young school teacher who provided the first known written record of the Salado cliff dwellings at what is now Tonto National Monument. In 1880, Angeline, known as Angie, took her students from her school near Tonto Creek on a field trip. Afterwards, she wrote a detailed account of the field trip in her diary. On the left is Cordelia Crawford. Crawfords lived on a small ranch where her husband would sell cattle in San Diego, so Cordelia was regularly left managing the ranch. Due to the rural setting, Cordelia delivered her own children, 3 children. Cordelia was skilled in healing, served her community, so she was friendly with the Apache women who would pass through the community and treat them and their children. This friendship may have saved her ranch during the Battle of Chibiku Creek. The Crawfords remained neutral during the time of the Pleasant Valley War. They moved to Tonto Creek, and Cordelia managed the Tonto stage stop, where partisans from both sides of the war stopped for food and lodging. Cordelia developed a way to serve the partisans without seeing them, speaking to them through a door. This strategy allowed her to say she had not seen the men in the party. The Crawfords returned to their ranch following the war. In 1893, the Crawfords moved to Globe, Arizona, and she lived there until her death in 1943. Cordelia was among the first inducted into Arizona's Women's Hall of Fame. We highly recommend a visit to Tonto National Monument. A very pleasant walk up to the lower cliff dwelling, back, and wonderful views coming and going.